So the first video of 2022 is finally here. Hello guys, one more time and welcome to Ring Royalty. My name is Alexis, as you already know. Today I will be speaking to you without the crown, so I'll be less royal than usual. Low-key, it is only because I just got my hair done and I don't want to mess it up. Anyways, before packing all my Christmas decoration, I decided to make this improvised set because it's a new year and I would like something refreshing for my viewers. So hopefully you like it. And today's video is something different as well. In 2022, we will be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the women's division in WWE, WWF, since it was reinstated in 1998. For that reason, I have decided to come up with a list of the best female wrestlers from each year, starting in 1998 and finishing in 2022. Now, I am sure this will be a long list, but hopefully you will bear with me and you will enjoy this trip down history. Also, I will turn 25 this year and it's the 25th anniversary of women's wrestling, so it was only fitting, right? Without anything left to say, let's start with the video. Before starting, I would just like to point out that this is all my opinion, so I am not basing all of this list in someone else's opinion or an official ranking. This is all from here. Let's start in 1998. The woman of that year for me was Sable, the original diva. She overshadowed her husband at the time, Mark Mero, and the WWE or WWF crowd back then just loved Sable and everything that she did. In the 90s, it was so uncommon to see a female superstar be more popular or more over with the crowd than the male one. So this was definitely an accomplishment already. Now, she participated in a mixed tag team match at WrestleMania, defeating Luna Vachon and Goldust alongside her husband Mark Mero. Sable was the one who got the pin after a Sable bomb. Once again, having a WrestleMania moment for women was completely unlikely, but Sable made it reality. What's more, she participated at SummerSlam, another of the big 4 pay-per-views in WWE. There, she teamed up with the debuting Edge to defeat her former ally Mark Mero and the newest member of the women's division, Jacqueline. Once again, Sable got the pin for her team, and it was clear that WWE really trusted her as the main player in this storyline. Now, the most important part came when the Women's Championship was reinstated in the second half of the year, and that's how at Survivor Series she defeated Jacqueline, overcoming all the shenanigans Mark Mero was doing at ringside to be crowned the women's champion. This solidified Sable as the face of the women's division and one of the most important superstars in WWF at the time. We're talking about an era where 90 or 95% of the roster were men and there were barely any opportunities or TV time for women. Everything that she accomplished in this year is the reason why she is my pick for Best Women in 1998. Now let's move to 1999 because we have another spectacular performer, Chyna. Chyna broke down barriers ever since she debuted in 1997, but 1999 was the most amazing year in Chyna's career. She became the first woman ever to participate in a Royal Rumble match, and she even managed to eliminate Mark Henry. For me, that is groundbreaking. She qualified and participated in the King of the Ring tournament. We're talking about 1999, and we have a woman participating in a men's tournament. That is considered ludicrous to me. But not only that, Chyna also became the first and only woman in history to become the #1 contender for the WWF or WWE Championship. We know that she had to relinquish that position to Mick Foley later on, but the fact that she was considered to be the #1 contender is a huge deal in my eyes. And then she would continue to make history by winning the Intercontinental Championship at the No Mercy pay-per-view in a housekeeping hardcore match against Jeff Jarrett, being once again the only woman in history to become the Intercontinental Champion. After the match, she received a standing ovation from the crowd, and she completely deserved it. She was a trailblazer, a record setter, and at this point she has already done more than many male wrestlers during 1999. But she wasn't content with that. She also defeated Chris Jericho in a very competitive match to retain her Intercontinental Championship. And even though she lost it later on against Jericho, everything that China accomplished was something that nobody would have expected. She was treated as a male wrestler, and the fact that China was a woman breaking down barriers in the biggest sports entertainment company in the world says a lot. Rest in peace, China, we miss you, and you will forever be an icon. In the year 2000, I'm choosing Ivory. She started the year by changing her mindset about how the divas should act in front of the live crowd, and she became a more conservative person, and she was against all the bikini contests, bra and panties matches, and all the type of stuff that the Attitude Era was all about. This was the beginning of an amazing character for Ivory. She would later join the Right to Censor, giving full force to this new persona that she was making. Her character was believable, and she defeated Lita, Trish Stratus, and Jacqueline to become the women's champion for the third time in her career. Defeating Lita, who was a fan favorite at the time, was a huge way to establish Ivory as the biggest heel in the company. She would also defeat Lita later on in a one-on-one match, a very grueling one at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, where Lita ended up bleeding all over, and then she would retain again at Armageddon, defeating Mighty Molly and Trish Stratus in a triple threat match. Ivory was pinning each of the girls that the crowd loved. For that reason, she was getting a lot of heat, and that's what they were going for. Ivory did her job perfectly. She had killer promos. Ever since joining the Right to Censor, this new character was so well portrayed by her that I just can't describe how awesome she was on the mic and in the ring. The cherry on top would be that by the end of the year, she would mess with the biggest babyface in the company in the women's division, China. Why? Because China has just posed for Playboy, and obviously in Ivory's mind that would be something terrible, degrading, embarrassing for a woman. Ivory during 2000 was dominating the whole division with her heel character, and there is no way that you can deny she's one of the best women on the mic, period. For 2001, I'm choosing Lita, the Queen of Extreme. Let me point out something. The 2001 year was terrible for the women's division. It was a whole mess for the company, but I guess one of the parts that was more affected was the Divas division. Lita started a feud with Dean Malenko in January and February. It was an intergender feud, giving me China vibes, and defeating Dean Malenko in their last match, winning the feud with help of Matt Hardy, which would give us one of the most amazing couples in wrestling history. Matt Hardy and Lita were now not only a team but also a couple, and Lita would join the Hardy Boys to become Team Extreme. Then Lita would be one of the representatives of the WWF company against the WCW-ECW Alliance storyline, feuding with the likes of Tori Wilson, Stacy Keibler, and Ivory. Let's move to Lita in the championship picture. She challenged China for the Women's Championship at Judgment Day, a once-in-a-lifetime match that was fantastic. Nobody appeared to be a match for China, but Lita surprised a lot of people with her high-risk maneuvers and also her athleticism and agility. They had a very competitive match. She didn't win, but definitely this established Lita as one of the main girls in the women's division for sure. Not only because of popularity, but also in ring skills. Unfortunately, after China was released, the title was inactive for around 6 months, and by the end of the year started a rivalry alongside Jeff Hardy against her former lover Matt, giving her the title of Queen of Extreme because she was getting involved in men's matches in very dangerous and risky spots, especially ever since joining Team Extreme with ladders and tables, chairs. So definitely Lita was the icon of 2001. A year that didn't have enough women's wrestling in my view, but Lita made the most out of the opportunities that she was given. In 2002, I'm choosing Victoria. Victoria debuted in Sunday Night Heat, which is a pre-show for Monday Night Raw, defeating the women's champion Trish Stratus, something that was unbelievable in many people's eyes because this newbie has just defeated the champion in a pre-show match without any type of warning. Like, what the hell was that? Her body build and moveset definitely stood out. The Psycho gimmick was previously unseen in the women's division, and I would say Victoria did a flawless job executing it to perfection. And this crazy character gave her the chance to get involved in many different risky spots between women. Lita did it a year prior but with men. This time around, Victoria was forcing the women's division to step up. She gave the first women's chair shot, like a clean shot, to Trish Stratus' skull. Everybody thought Trish Stratus was dead after that. And all this rivalry led to the hardcore match for the Women's Championship at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, which Victoria won. A very competitive, physical, and grueling match. Fans were used to see divas compete in swimming pool matches or mud matches, and now we have a hardcore match for the Women's Championship. For me, that's a huge improvement. The development of the women's division was clearly showing at this point, and having this new Victoria shake the core of the women's division and winning the title from the biggest babyface in the company, for me deserves the top spot of this year. She also retained the title later on against Trish and Jacqueline at the pay-per-view Armageddon in a triple threat match, once again highlighting her crazy and psycho self, especially in that backstage segment when Jackie, "I'll show you, psycho!" She was definitely a psycho, but a psycho that we loved. And in 2003, I'm choosing Molly Holly, an underappreciated queen. The first half of 2003 was nothing special for her, but ever since she defeated Gail Kim for the Women's Championship in an episode of Raw in July, everything would shake up. She became a heel full force. She managed to keep the championship the rest of the year, having title defenses against the like of the former champion Gail Kim, Trish Stratus, Ivory, and even the returning Lita. I want to highlight that the rivalry with Gail Kim and Molly Holly against Lita and Trish Stratus has to be one of the most physical women's tag team feuds I've seen ever. And considering that they were not really in a tag team division because WWE didn't have that for women, I would say they did a pretty awesome job. Also, speaking of title defenses, the defense at the Survivor Series pay-per-view against Lita was fantastic. Lita kicking out of the Molly go round was a shocker, but then Molly would find a way by exposing the turnbuckle to win anyways. She got a ton of heat for winning that way against Lita, but that's what we needed for a heel character. Molly had been a heel before, but I would say this time around, she showed everything that she could do. She was so used to it and so comfortable in her character that she didn't even look like she was trying to be a heel. It was all natural and smooth. And I give kudos to Molly Holly for that. Let's move to 2004, and I'm going with the Canadian Queen, the best of all time, Trish Stratus. Having a heel turn at WrestleMania was something unthinkable for a female performer, but Trish Stratus did it when she betrayed Chris Jericho, her on-screen boyfriend, to join forces with Christian. It was an epic way to turn Trish heel. Then with this heel character would go on to Bad Blood and win the Women's Championship for the 5th time in her career by defeating Lita, Victoria, and Gail King in a fatal 4-way match. She would keep the championship for most of the year and would give us one of the most amazing promos we have heard in the women's division. Definitely instant classics that people still remember now, like the Walking Kiss of Death promo on Lita. And speaking of Lita, the rivalry between Trish and Lita in 2004 was magnificent. Having Lita pregnant and Trish Stratus keep bugging her, knowing that she couldn't fight, but at the same time not staying in the sidelines by defeating people like Stacy Keibler, Nidia, and Victoria for the championship, was a fantastic way to build a rivalry while still making Trish a fighting incredible champion. The Survivor Series pay-per-view would give us a brawl that would lead us to the main event of Monday Night Raw in December, where Lita would defeat Trish, the first time ever women main evented a Raw episode alone, and it was for the title. There is no way to describe how monumental this match was. It's still remembered to this date, and rightfully so. Trish Stratus was one of the most amazing women ever, but some people forget how awesome she was during her heel run. She has an amazing babyface presence and people love her, that is true, but her heel character and her heel work were on point, and some people forget about that, so I'm here to remind you of it. And in 2005, I am choosing Trish Stratus once again. I mean, the 7-time women's champion strikes again. After losing the title in December, she would only have to wait 3 weeks to regain it at the New Year's Revolution pay-per-view when she got the title back from Lita when she got injured. After that, Trish was mocking everyone because that's what she does best, and later would start a rivalry with Christy Hemme, the Diva Search winner, trying to bully her for posing for Playboy and being just bubbly all the time. This would lead to a rivalry and a match at WrestleMania 21 for the Women's Championship, where Lita would get involved as Christy Hemming's manager to add the hype. Christy and Trish gave us a very entertaining feud for the record. I always remember one of Trish's promos when she said, "I don't care if you're freaking Britney Spears, nobody steals my spotlight. And I will end your career just like that." Iconic lines. After that, Trish got injured and disappeared from WWE programming for around 4 months, but they never took the title away from her because probably they didn't believe in anyone else in the division. This was the era where most of the women were leaving the company and a lot of models were coming in, and Trish would return in September as a babyface to defend Diva Search contestant Ashley Massaro from Victoria, Candice Michelle, and Tori Wilson, giving us another tag team feud which was very lovely, and also having great title defenses against Victoria and an inter-promotional one against SmackDown's diva Melina at Survivor Series. Trish Stratus dominated 2004, 2005, and she could easily dominate some other years, but I would say these two were definitely the most important ones in her career. For 2006, I'm choosing Mickie James. The psycho character Victoria portrayed years back was awesome, but Mickie James definitely was right there with her, giving us the most psychotic women ever and also one of the best rivalries in women's wrestling history alongside Trish Stratus. The development of her psycho character was so good. Mickie James' facial expressions, attitude, and behavior during matches was so flawless. Everything that she did was fantastic. I just can't believe how good she was at portraying this crazy gimmick. The biggest accomplishment of her career up to that point would come at WrestleMania 22, when she defeated her former idol Trish Stratus in a grueling match for the records, to become the women's champion for the first time in her career. Then she would continue feuding with Trish Stratus and defeating the likes of Maria, Tori Wilson, and Candice Michelle in random matches. Later, after Trish retired, she started a rivalry with Lita and would defeat Lita in her retirement match at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, winning the championship for the second time that year and also having a match for the record books. This was a passing of the torch moment happening twice. It seemed to me that both Trish and Lita gave Mickie James the torch, they gave her the ball and Mickie ran with it. Let's say she became the new leader of the women's division, and that's how Mickie James was actually saw by the WWE Universe. The newer girl that became the locker room leader. It is so awesome, don't you think? And defeating two of the biggest women in women's wrestling history, that says a lot. Mickie James owned 2006 for sure. In 2007, I want to choose a woman that proved a lot of haters wrong, and that's Candice Michelle. Candice Michelle has always been seen as an eye candy, but in this year, she definitely came out of her shelf and showed everyone that she could wrestle too. She had a broken nose by the end of 2006, but in 2007 she returned with a new moveset, defeating Victoria in a singles match and later on entering a rivalry with the women's champion Melina, defeating her in many non-title matches. And when the Vengeance pay-per-view hit and she got her title opportunity, a lot of people thought that she would lose, but we were wrong. Candice Michelle became the women's champion by defeating Melina, then she defeated Melina again at the Great American Bash and started one of the most underappreciated feuds yet amazing ones in women's wrestling history against Beth Phoenix, having instant classic matches at Unforgiven, No Mercy, and the very popular 2 out of 3 falls match on Raw. I think despite being the champion, Candice Michelle didn't get the credibility and respect that she deserved, but once the Beth feud started, I would say she definitely got all the claps in the bag that she was working so hard for. Candice Michelle proved everyone that not only a woman can be sexy, but they can be athletic. She was the perfect mix of sexiness and skills. Unfortunately, she will have the scariest injury in women's wrestling history after she broke her collarbone during the women's 2 out of 3 falls championship match. This would put her on the shelf, which was so sad because she was increasing her star power week in and week out, but definitely Candice Michelle made her mark in the women's division during 2007. And she became one of the pillars of the division in this year. Now, it's only fitting that we continue in 2008 with the women that dethroned Candice Michelle, the Glamazon Beth Phoenix. This was the year of the Glamazon because she had so many accomplishments that I don't think I can mention all of them. She joined forces with Melina to get a WrestleMania victory, defeating Maria and Ashley in the Playboy Bunny Mania tag team match. Then she would lose the championship but would make history by facing Melina at One Night Stand in the first and only I Quit women's match in history, giving us an amazing spectacle in a non-title match, which was so rare at the time. Divas getting pay-per-view matches without a championship involved was something that you didn't see often. Then she decided to win the championship back by teaming up with Santino Marella to defeat Kofi Kingston and Mickie James in a winner-take-all mixed tag team match at the biggest party of the summer, SummerSlam. And then she would set another record by becoming the first woman ever to be the sole survivor at the Survivor Series traditional tag team match. She won for the Raw team, defeating Maryse last and giving her this accolade. She was champion for most of the year. She also won the Slammy for Diva of the Year, and she was definitely the Glamazon, the freaking Glamazon. There is no other way to describe Beth Phoenix in 2008. She was almost unbeatable. Moving to 2009, we have to mention the women that finally stopped Beth's reign of dominance, and it is the paparazzi queen, Melina. Melina started the year by participating in a women's championship match at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view against Beth Phoenix and surprisingly defeating her with a roll-up and becoming the women's champion. She would continue her women's championship reign by defeating Beth Phoenix and Jillian in numerous occasions until she was drafted to SmackDown and started a feud with Michelle McCool. And even if she lost the championship to McCool, she gave us two instant classic matches, one at the Bash and the other one at Night of Champions. Can you believe that Michelle McCool and Melina had such a spectacular match that they were scolded backstage because their match was too good for a women's match? Sounds so stupid, but it also means that they were doing an excellent job. Then Melina would be traded back to Raw to defeat Jillian Hall in that screwjob that I didn't like, but it would give Melina her first reign as Divas Champion, becoming the first and only woman in history to win the Women's Championship and the Divas Championship on the same year. She continued her Divas Championship reign for the rest of the year, defeating Jillian numerous times once again, and she would also achieve the sole survivor spot alongside Mickie James at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. We already knew that Melina was a great performer by 2009, but this was definitely the year that WWE put some extra effort into Melina's showcase. And I am happy that they decided to go that way. In 2010, I'm cheating a little bit because I'm not choosing one, I'm choosing two female wrestlers, but I mean, they were like one because they were flawless, and that is real talk. LayCool. LayCool definitely carried the women's division in 2010. They were fantastic. They were the first real women's tag team that people were invested in because their characters were so awesome. They were the mean girls of the women's division, but they did it correctly. They weren't corny, they were really funny, and for me it was fantastic to see funny wrestlers that can actually go inside the ring. They had amazing feuds with the likes of Mickie James with all the Piggy James storyline, with Beth Phoenix with the Glamour Man gimmick, Kelly Kelly with the Smelly Kelly one, with Melina for the unification of the titles, and later on with Natalya. They dominated the whole division, and they were appearing on both SmackDown and Raw because people couldn't get enough of LayCool. We love to hate them, and that's what their job was all about. Kudos to those ladies, they really were my favorite ones growing up. I love LayCool so much. They were featuring almost all the pay-per-views in that year, winning against Maryse and Gail Kim in that Battle of the Brands tag team match at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Later on, Layla became the women's champion, participating in the first ever women's championship handicap match alongside Michelle McCool against Beth Phoenix, making history once again. They became co-champions, and that's why Michelle McCool participated at Night of Champions representing LayCool in the unification of the championships match. Michelle won with the help of Layla, and they became the Unified Divas Champion. And that led to one historic match, which was a tag team tables match at the TLC pay-per-view. The first time ever women got a table match as a stipulation. Fantastic job. LayCool lost, I know, but the way that they were making history almost at every pay-per-view that they participated in, for me, is just gold. LayCool will always remain as one of the most, if not the most amazing women's tag team in wrestling history, period. And 2010 was the peak of their careers. Now let's switch things up and talk about a babyface, because in 2011, I'm choosing Kelly Kelly. Kelly started 2011 by feuding with Vicky Guerrero and having one monumental opportunity when she defended the World Heavyweight Championship in the main event of SmackDown, teaming up with Edge in a 2-on-1 mixed handicap match against Lay Cool and Dolph Ziggler. This is a monumental event just because not only Kelly main evented SmackDown, but she's the first and only woman ever to defend the World Heavyweight Championship. Later that year, she will be drafted to Raw and win the Divas Championship for the first time in her career in the Raw episode that was themed as Power to the People. It was a very sweet moment for her. She had the opportunity to give us a heartfelt speech after the match. She was basically the face of the Divas division already, but with the title she solidified herself in that position, and what took her to the next level was her rivalry with Beth Phoenix. Having two fantastic matches, one at SummerSlam and the other at Night of Champions. Kelly against Beth Phoenix at Night of Champions is one of the best matches, if not the best match out of Kelly's career. By the end of the year, she would win the Slammy of Diva of the Year 2011 and will be recognized by everyone as one of the most over baby faces in the women's division ever. Probably the most over women ever since Mickie James like 3 or 4 years back. So Kelly did a wonderful job in 2011 for sure. Now for 2012, I'm choosing one of Kelly's buddies, Eve Torres. She started the year by joining a storyline which involved Zack Ryder, Kane, and John Cena, becoming a main event player, and finally betraying Zack Ryder turning heel in WrestleMania, becoming only the second woman ever to have this accolade of turning heel at the grandest stage of them all. That was fantastic, and I would say the heel turn catapulted Eve to the top of the division. She was handed a managerial position that she kept for months, trying to be this heel authority member that would take advantage of her power to make other people's lives miserable. And at Night of Champions, everything changed when Eve Torres defeated Layla to win the Divas Championship once again. Then she would have a great battle defending the title against both Layla and Kaitlyn at Hell in a Cell. Also start her feud with Kaitlyn full force after the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and one of the most memorable storylines during the Divas era. She would also defend the championship against the likes of Beth Phoenix and Naomi, and it was solidifying herself as the top dog of the division this time around. Even though she had 2 title reigns prior to this one, the heel Eve Torres was the best version of Eve Torres we got during her WWE run. That's undeniable. And in 2013, we start with the new generation. And the most representative person of the new generation is obviously the Black Widow, AJ Lee. The best Divas champion in history, at least to me. Don't come for me, don't bash me. She was already seen as one of the biggest superstars in WWE with all her feuds with CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, and Kane. But she would win the Divas championship for the first time in her career at the Payback pay-per-view against her former best friend Kaitlyn, and from that moment she would feel unbeatable. She held on to the title for the rest of the year, defeating absolutely everyone in the division. From the Bella Twins and Natalya to Kaitlyn, Cameron, and Naomi, there was nobody that could touch AJ Lee. Her pipe bomb was one of the most controversial segments for a woman in history. It brought a lot of attention to the women's division as well, and it helped promoting Total Divas, even though she wasn't even on the show. Now let's go back for a minute to her feud with Kaitlyn, because it was so well prepared, having that creative secret admirer angle, which led to the big blow-up match at Payback where AJ won the championship, and then having a segment with Stephanie McMahon. AJ is so good on the mic, and the fact that she got to share the ring with Stephanie in a promo battle for me was fantastic. She was killing the game. AJ Lee was the champion now, but she was also great in the ring, a fantastic talker, and one of the most important women ever. Also, she was very over with the crowd, whether she was a babyface or a heel. So having AJ Lee at the top of the women's division was a 100% success move by WWE. In 2014, I'm choosing Paige. The anti-diva Paige started the year as the NXT Women's Champion, defended the championship in the first pay-per-view for NXT TakeOver Arrival, where she had a very underrated match against Emma, and she successfully debuted the PTO to make Emma tap out and retain her championship. Later that year, she would debut on the main roster in the Raw episode after WrestleMania to challenge AJ Lee for the Divas Championship and actually take the title away from her, becoming the first ever double champion in WWE history. At this point, she has already made her mark in the history book. She defeated everyone that stood in her way during the next 3 months until AJ Lee came back, so they started a full force feud. And this feud was very creative and innovative in my view, because we didn't have only one but both members of the rivalry as crazy chicks. Paige and AJ were the definition of crazy chicks going at it. Paige would drop the title to AJ, but later she would win the title for the second time in the same year at the biggest party of the summer, SummerSlam, by hitting the Rampage. Paige making her mark once more. She was hanging in the ring with the big dogs, and for me, Paige completely stole the show in 2014 out of everyone in the women's division. She did an awesome job. She was so different from what they had at the time. Her look, her personality, her charisma, everything was so different from the usual diva role that we have been seeing in the main roster for years. That's why she was named the anti-diva. It's incredible to see in hindsight how fast Paige actually solidified herself as a main eventer player in the main roster. Unbelievable to see. And she was also the youngest person to win the Divas Championship at the age of 21. Kudos to Paige. Now, we mentioned NXT briefly with Paige, but for 2015, I want to choose NXT superstar Bayley. Bayley, oh my god, that was her year. They put some effort into her character development, and they actually achieved that with flying colors. In February, Bayley took part in the first and only Fatal 4-Way match between all the 4 horsewomen, a match that, in my opinion, gave her the opportunity that she needed to be seen by the NXT universe as a real wrestler. And these opportunities kept coming with the feuds with Emma, Dana Brooke, and Charlotte, but ultimately the thing that would springboard Bayley to the top was her rivalry with Sasha Banks. To be more specific, their title match for the NXT Women's Championship at TakeOver Brooklyn. That match was spectacular, a 5-star match, undoubtedly the best match in the history of the WWE or WWF's women's division, hands down. And then they followed this up by making Bayley defend the championship at TakeOver Respect against Sasha in the first ever 30-minute Iron Women match. Bayley and Sasha making history time and time again, and Bayley coming on top both of these pay-per-view matches is what solidified her as the main player of the NXT Women's Division. She was believable before, she was beloved before, but this took her to the next level. The other horsewomen just left to the main roster, so Bayley was the one standing tall in NXT and claiming the division as hers. She achieved the perfect balance between a beloved babyface but at the same time being a credible champion. She gave us very good title defenses against the likes of Nia Jax and Alexa Bliss, checking January 2015 when she was a naive wrestler and maybe not seen as a prominent figure, to December where she became one of the most credible superstars in WWE period, is just a huge improvement, and it shows the development of her character and the trust WWE had in her and how she got the ball and ran with it. In 2016, I am choosing, for obvious reasons, Charlotte Flair. Woo! Just like Bayley did the year prior, Charlotte stole the show this year, but she did it on the main roster, beginning the year as the Divas Champion, defeating Becky Lynch and Brie Bella in title defenses as well as Natalya, and then arriving to WrestleMania 32 as the Divas Champion and leaving WrestleMania as the newly crowned Women's Champion. She retired one championship and won the other one back. Now, whether you like her or not, Charlotte has an amazing moveset. She's so athletic and she's so versatile that she can deliver great matches again and again. She was undefeated in pay-per-views during 2016. Starting at the Royal Rumble and finishing at Roadblock the end of the line, she never lost not even one pay-per-view match. She had memorable feuds with Natalya in the first half of 2016 and Sasha Banks on the second half, which elevated her title ranks even more. She won the Raw Women's Championship 4 times in only 1 year, That is insane. I mean, we know the hot potato thing that happened there, but still there are a lot of accomplishments there. Moreover, she defended the championship in many different stipulation matches, such as submission, Hell in a Cell, Falls Count Anywhere, and even an Iron Women match. She took part in every single historic match that happened in 2016 and she won all of them. So undeniably, she's the best woman this year. She owned the game completely. And speaking of owning the game, for 2017, I'm choosing the Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka. Asuka started the year with her undefeated streak. She was already NXT Women's Champion. She had a reign that lasted for over a year and undefeated for over 500 days. She was doing the unthinkable for a female performer, being undefeated and be seen as this mystique, unbeatable force. Kind of like Goldberg back in the day, but in the women's division. Is something that had never happened before. Most of these years she spent her time in NXT defending the championship against every woman in the division, from the Iconics to Ruby Riott, Nikki Cross, and Ember Moon. And let's talk about Ember Moon a little bit more because their match at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3 was an instant classic. Asuka forced everyone to step up and gave most of the girls in NXT during that period of time their best match. She's truly a master in the ring. The holds, counters, and strikes that she had in the ring were so unfamiliar to everyone because no other women have gone with this type of in-ring style before to WWE, so it was so unique. Later on, she would move to the main roster and debut at the TLC pay-per-view, defeating former foe Emma, making quick work of her, to be honest. And she would continue her undefeated streak for the rest of the year. 2017 was the pinnacle of Asuka's career. Her mystique was there full force. She was just this intimidating presence that didn't even need to talk to make their opponents crap their pants. And I'm here loving every second of it. I miss this Asuka. This Asuka completely revolutionized the NXT women's division after the 4 horsewomen were gone. So we're getting closer to the end of the list, and from 2018, I'm choosing the baddest woman on the planet, Ronda Rousey. From her first appearance in WWE after the Women's Royal Rumble match, to her debut match at WrestleMania, teaming up with Kurt Angle to defeat Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, everything that Ronda Rousey did was applauded by everyone in the audience. She was just such a star before coming to WWE, and her star power only grew during her period of time with the company. She adapted herself to the sports entertainment world quite fast. At SummerSlam, she destroyed Alexa Bliss in under 3 minutes to win her first Raw Women's Championship, and she held onto the title for numerous months until the day she left the company, and she had an iconic main event of a pay-per-view defeating Nikki Bella at Evolution, the first all-women's pay-per-view. This match between Ronda and Nikki is also the most viewed match in WWE's YouTube channel in history. It is amazing to see what the girls accomplished that night, and this year she also defended her championship against numerous opponents like Natalya, Nia Jax, and Mickie James. She also had that amazing match against Charlotte, which ended in no DQ, but it was so good even if we didn't have a decisive winner. Ronda Rousey made history, and she was one of the main reasons that many new eyes landed on the women's division. Her star power attracted many different people, and I would say she didn't disappoint during her reign as Raw Women's Champion. It was lengthy, but it was worth it. And no surprise to anyone that 2019 was the year of the man, so I'm choosing Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch won the Women's Royal Rumble match in January. She will move to headline WrestleMania after a controversial storyline with The Authority, including Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, and even Vince McMahon himself. But the culmination of the storyline had Becky main event in WrestleMania alongside Raw Women's Champion Ronda Rousey and SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte in a triple threat winner-takes-all match, making this the first time ever in history that women main event WrestleMania. Bottom line, Becky Lynch came out of WrestleMania as Becky Two Belts. She was a double champion, and she dominated the rest of the year for sure. She dropped the SmackDown Women's Championship but stayed on Raw as champion for the rest of the year. She had 2 very important title defenses in my view. The first one at Extreme Rules when she teamed up with Seth Rollins to defeat Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans in the Intergender Extreme Rules tag team match. A very innovative concept that we haven't seen ever, I think. And also her Hell in a Cell match against Sasha Banks. Those two were very memorable title defenses for Becky, and even her submission match at SummerSlam against Natalya. Becky Lynch really had a very good title reign. There were some ups and downs, there were many downs, but let's focus on the positive side. And besides everything that I've just mentioned, Becky Lynch not only became the face of the women's division, but she also eclipsed many different male wrestlers because she was the face of the company. Not even the women's division, the whole damn company. Nobody expected it, but that's how far Becky actually went. And that is something that we as women's wrestling fans should be proud of. Now, the women I chose for 2020 is my favorite. The boss, Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks won absolutely every title that was possible to win by women on the main roster. She became the Raw Women's Champion, Women's Tag Team Champion, and SmackDown Women's Champion in the span of 4 months. That's something that nobody has been able to achieve besides her. She was delivering again and again. She had the best rivalry of the year alongside Bayley. That was pure gold, and it culminated with a perfect Hell in a Cell match where Sasha Banks finally defeated her former best friend to win the SmackDown Women's Championship for the first time, becoming a Grand Slam champion and also breaking the curse of not being able to defend any championship. Because she defended the title that year not only against Bayley in the rematch on SmackDown, but against the returning Carmella in a very surprising and amazing match at TLC. It's incredible how Sasha Banks just draw everyone's attention. Everybody was waiting for her to turn on Bayley for the first half of the year, and it never happened. But after Bayley turned on her, it was payback time, and the boss delivered. The blueprint came out, and she came out on top. Now, besides these 2 matches, she also had her SummerSlam match for the Raw Women's Championship against Asuka, as well as the Team Shania against the Golden Role Models match at Payback for the Tag Team Championships. Sasha Banks just slayed 2020 hard, and there is no way to deny that she definitely deserves to be recognized as the best woman in that year. And moving to 2021, I think it's no secret to anyone if you watched my video previously that my pick would be Bianca Belair. From winning the Women's Royal Rumble to headlining WrestleMania against Sasha Banks in a 5-star match caliber, winning the SmackDown Women's Championship, owning absolutely everyone that stood in her way, having that amazing title defense against Bayley at Hell in a Cell. Everything that she did during this year was gold. It was perfect. She was hurt because of the loss at SummerSlam, I already talked about that, but she later on bounced back, had the triple threat match at the Saudi Arabia show, and she became the sole survivor for the Raw Women's team at Survivor Series. 2 underrated matches that she had, but they were really good, are her match for the Raw Women's Championship against Charlotte in the main event of Raw, and also her last match against Doudrop when she hit the KOD on the girl. Like, oh, that was so stunning. Bianca Belair, I just love you. I'm not gonna talk more about her because she is the EST and she proved to be the greatest during 2021. Now, obviously 2022 is just starting, but I will give a wild prediction who I think will be the Women of the Year. And for some reason, I have decided to choose Liv Morgan. I mean, her performance at day 1 was fantastic, and WWE is clearly putting some effort into Liv Morgan's character development and also trusting her with big matches. Even though she didn't win the title, I can see her winning the Royal Rumble maybe, and headlining WrestleMania or having some accolades down the line. So I really think there are many big things coming Liv Morgan's way. Okay, so this was my list of the best women of each year for the 25th anniversary of WWE's Women's Division. Tell me down in the comments what will be your list for each year. Please try to take the time to think because I know it's a lengthy list. And also let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video or not, if you agree with my picks or not. All of that will be welcome. Hope that you had an amazing New Year's Eve and looking forward to see what 2022 has in store for me, for you, and for the channel. My name is Alexis, as you already know. Here is my Instagram if you want to talk to me or anything. Lots of love to everyone, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!